Okay. The stream should be transferred over. People in the YouTube chat box, let me know when you can hear us. I've just shared the agenda in the Zoom chat and on the YouTube chat. And we will go ahead and get started. Happy New Year, everyone. Thank you for coming. Step one, as has been step one for many months, testing and release updates. As I believe you are aware, and please mute when you're not talking. Cool. As I believe you're aware, we're working on V010. This is since DevCon, we made some breaking changes to facilitate a altered phase one. There has been a lot of churn in the phase 0 spec. V010 is to be a stable target both for you on testnets and for some audits that are being conducted. So excited to get it back to a stable place. Thanks for bearing with us on that journey. So again, that is to be released tomorrow, by tomorrow, potentially today. This contains some small modifications to network spec, a couple of different configuration ability parameters to phase 0, and generally, at least from many angles, non-breaking changes. I don't think there's anything really substantive in the phase 0 spec other than being able to configure some additional items. So anyway, that will drop soon, and we can.
Danny, question on that.
Yes.
So the BLS changes are not going into this
Yes,
spec,
sorry. No, that's the. I totally forgot. That is the major thing coming out. So
Right,
the breaking change.
yeah.
Yes. Other than the BLS changes, which is like the major component of this release. Thank you, Ben. I'm sorry. It's 7 a.m. The sun isn't quite up. It's coming. BLS is going in. BLS is the major breaking change. Thank you, everyone that's been working on the standardization effort. Thank you, Carl and Kirk, who've been working on integrating the changes into the spec. And thank you, everyone, for doing the work that you're going to need to do to get that up to spec. I know there is some movement on integrating these standards into libraries, but there might be some legwork that we have to do on our own. Okay, so that is a major breaking change. Thank you, Ben. Other than that, there's some additional configuration parameters. There's a slight modification to the networking spec that we discussed on the last call, but nothing crazy. But the BLS is crazy. And if you haven't seen Ben's BLS intro digest document he shared the other day, check it out. It's really good. In addition to that, along with testing, I think there's a handful of additional tests, I think, on the deposit processing to catch a couple of other cases. But again, that is additional testing rather than breaking changes. Okay. Release coming in next 24 hours. Proto, any other testing updates?
No big test updates. I think we'll be mostly focusing on testing phase 1 in near term.
Yep.
And that we are releasing the very first draft.
Yeah, we have a kind of working draft that's getting into a decent place for phase 1 that may or may not go out with V010, but that'll be in dev shortly, regardless.
What about testing for fork choice?
Great point. Is anyone from Harmony here that's been working on that?
I'm here, and yeah, we have published. Alex has published some of the updates. Let me post just this issue. It's on the GitHub. You can check the format and example of test vectors. This is an integration test. not a unit test that we used to have for state and other things. Yeah. So take a look at that and give a feedback. And
yeah, if I can get a couple of eyes on that in the next few days and a couple thumbs up, then we can integrate that into the standard testing distro. Mikhail, you had more?
Sorry, Danny. What?
Oh, I thought you had something else to say.
Oh no.
Okay.
I have something else. Anything else?
Gotcha. Thanks. Okay. Any other testing items? Great. Moving on. Client updates. Start with Nimbus.
Hi. So it was a bit quiet during the last 3 weeks because most of everyone was on holidays. Regarding the core spec, we are now in sync with 0.9.4. For fuzzing purposes, we are keeping a separate branch with 0.9.3 to ease SIGP fuzz work. We are focused right now on the networking side. We have our first PR on Discovery v5. So it's halfway done, and that's the major blocker to join Prism and Lighthouse testnets. We are currently verifying interop with GoLib P2P as well. As you know, we released the NIMLib P2P version, initial version 3 weeks ago. And we are reevaluating our sync strategy and looking into what BitTorrent did to save and bandwidth also. And on the tooling side, we are planning RPC endpoint for Beacon node for all kind of RPC purposes.
Great. Thank you. And Artemis.
Good morning, everyone. I'm giving the update for Artemis and some of the stuff that we've been working on over the last month includes Eth2.0 data management, including polling client, an Eth2.0 client for block data. And there's a question about this that I'll ask in a moment. Other things that we've also been working on are the sync between Artemis clients, including the startup of these different clients. We've also done some integration of the discovery module. As I mentioned on previous calls, we've taken the Harmony discovery module and we've adapted it and put it into Artemis, and that's almost done. We've also been working on the Beacon Fuzz integration of Artemis into the Beacon Fuzz project, and that's almost complete as well. And there's a question about that, which I'll ask in a moment. And of course, Ben's Java implementation of the IETF standard hash to curve method for Ethereum 2 has been merged into Artemis very recently as well. Thanks, Ben, for that. So the two questions that I had, the first one was about the Eth2.0 data. Just wondering if there are any resources we can look at on how people are syncing Eth2.0 mainnet data to the chain. Is it one peer that they're polling or more? And if people are interested in answering that question, they can ping me later. The other question, which perhaps is something we can talk about now, is for the Beacon Fuzz. I know that project is at the 091 spec. Not sure if it will be updated, what the plan is for updating that spec.
There were two approaches broadly. One is that the Beacon node is talking to some Eth2.0 RPC endpoint, gathering and caching this data, or there's like a separate kind of side module that's doing the work. I believe that everyone is generally talking to one RPC endpoint, operating under the assumption that this is either a node that is being run by the validator, or a node that the validator is connecting to, in which they have some sort of trust relationship with. Are there any other more fancy methods going on that I'm not aware of? Cool. And if you have anything to share with Shanhan on methods, check it out. There's a change in V010 that uses time stamping rather than block height to cast votes, which has some benefits in terms of caching. I call it generally backwards compatible because even if like a handful of people are doing the votes differently, towards the end of the period they would agree on votes in 99% of the time anyway. They're in the issue that Paul raised and that push for this change. There's a little bit of description of like, how they may or may not be caching and things that might be interesting to take a look at there.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and what was the second one again?
The other one was the Beacon Fuzz project is using
Right,
this
091. I am not, maybe someone from Lighthouse knows. I'm talking to Mehdi later today and I can ask him. I imagine because the V010 is out for audits and is to be a longer term stable target, that's going to be the next update, but I'm not certain.
Okay, thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Thanks, Artemis. Trinity.
Hello. Recently, we are working on the validator and beacon node separation. This will include a new validator client logic implementation and the validator API implementation. And it will be used in some kind of testnet soon. And we have a Eth2.0 data voting handler currently located in our beacon, the beacon node side, and we're currently working on how to integrating it with the real Eth2.0 Web3 provider. Yeah, currently we are testing it with the test provider. And the third thing is that about the spec syncing, we are following up the 0.9.3 version, and we have a signing root PR which is almost done. And I think after that we will sync with the 0.9.4 soon. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Prism.
Oh, hey, Happy New Year, everyone. Excited for an awesome year with you. So most of you guys have heard we're relaunching our testnet. The Genesis time is 4 p.m. Pacific today. It implements everything up to the V093 spec. We do use the V094 spec test though. And most importantly, this uses the mainnet config with 1/10 of the deposit requirement, which is 3.2 ETH. So we do expect the syncing time to be relatively slow early on, and it's a P0 priority for us to work on for the next coming weeks. So a couple of key progresses from the last few weeks. We implemented everything up to V093 of the spec. There's a bunch of optimizations that went in to support mainnet config, such as properly handling of the deposits and how we look at it and how we look at the Eth1 data. We had to refactor some of the validator assignment and committee logic for the validator obfusc response to be as efficient as possible. Raul also did a lot of great work on implementing a custom version of SSE tree hash state. So yeah, if anyone is interested in being a Prism validator, the Genesis time is 4 p.m. today. I will drop the participation link at chat right now.
4 p.m. Pacific Standard.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks. Yeah. I was talking with Preston, and it looks like y'all have the aggregation strategy with the aggregation and proof on the testnet. Yeah, that's exciting. I think y'all are the first to test that on a testnet. So excited to see what happens at 4 p.m. Cool. Thank you very much. Lighthouse.
Yep. Hey, everyone. From us, we've been running a testnet from, I think we started on like the 22nd of December. We haven't actually announced it publicly, but we should be doing that in the next few days. And it's on a mainnet spec that's been running fairly stable, so it's time to get some public people in there to try and break it. So since then, we've been trying to focus on some of the stability of the testnet and performance, in particular block processing times, because syncing obviously takes a while to process all the blocks. So we've actually made some pretty significant gains, which should hopefully be good when we release that to the public. So we've been looking at some of the networking stuff as well in terms of bug fixing and stuff and stability for our testnet. The Bitfly team also found like a lock in our API. So thanks to them, they've helped us kind of debug that, which has been really useful. We're close to like a version 1.1 release, which adds all these kinds of stability fixes and block processing updates. So we'll hopefully release those in the next few days along with the new testnet. We removed the requirements for like a full Eth1 node. So we don't need we can just have a fast sync node is all we need. So we're going to probably remove all the public Goerli node docs from our docs to encourage any participants to just run their own Eth1 nodes. We built some Docker Compose stuff, which allows you to, in a single command, just spin up a node and a validator and join the network relatively easily. We've added Harumi, BLS Harumi. We've saw, I think, about 2 times gains in that, which is passing all the tests. We haven't actually added it into master yet. And we're currently in the process of adding the naive aggregation strategy, which should hopefully be soon, which we'll release in an entirely new testnet.
Cool.
Cheers.
Thank you. And Shigeo, the maintainer of the Harumi library, has been working on updating it to support the new IETF standards, which should be
Yeah.
for a lot of y'all.
Yeah, we're kind of hoping for that because it did see some pretty decent gains.
Cool. Thank you. Harmony.
We have updated the spec to 0.9.4, and Alex has generated those test vectors according to this spec version. Also, Dmitry working on this Q5 simulation. Anton helped him to extend his simulator that he crafted for Gossip Sub simulation, and now he's bringing some started to bring in this Q5 to this simulator. Also, we have discussed the time consensus stuff, and now Alex is working on the write-up to describe some basic ideas, and that's probably it for now. Starting to work on some new stuff as part of TXRX. Yeah.
Right. Cool. I guess in the future we'll move Harmony update to just be maybe in conjunction with TXRX and research updates. Does that make sense?
Yep, sure.
Cool. Great. Thanks, Mikhail. Lodestar.
Hey, so we're getting back up to speed after the holidays. As far as spec tests, as far as the spec, we are in the final stages of merging our 0.9 branch into master. And then at that point, we should be up to 0.9.3. We have been working on refactoring our SSC library to allow for something like Proto's remerkleable library, something that can abstract over a Merkle tree backed structure and give you an interface that looks like a kind of like a normal object would. And as part of that, I guess the code is better, and just even for our naive cases, and looks like our serialization and hash tree root for naive cases is like twice as fast, surprisingly. And then hopefully in the next few weeks, we should have something like a remarkable for our library to plug in. And that's it.
Great, thank you. I shared the link to Proto's recent work on Remarkable. Proto, do you want to give a quick, just brief on that?
Sure. So the idea here is that, like, part of the SSC philosophy is objects can be very, very large. So some kind of data sharing as part of your SSC library is just very nice to have if you're working with this as like a focus more on proofs or more on like these continuous updates where you would want to know and evolve this hash tree root based on cached subtrees. And so this is all nicely abstracted in Remarkable, where you can just act like it's a normal spec object. That's the exact same syntax, but it does all the data sharing, caching, merkleization, all that in the background.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, I shared the link. Check it out.
More examples and documentation to follow. It's in an early stage.
Cool. Nethermind.
Sorry, trying to unmute. Okay, this is Sly here. So we're still progressing. I mean, we're a bit behind everyone else. We've just got the validator block signing working. We're still on 091. So the validator talks to the beacon node, so you can actually run both and generate an ongoing chain. So we've got the core there. But there's still no attestations, still mock Eth1 data. We're literally just about to start work on the peering to publish the block. It's already started some research, but no actual code yet. Most of the team's been busy with Eth1 work, but they've now freed up a bit to more focus on Eth2. So soonish, I think we'll be, because it's mostly just me, but we'll be expanding the team. Some of the other people will be moving on to I know Thomas has done a bit of work as well, but we should be growing a bit more and hopefully catch up with everyone else.
Cool. Thank you very much. And I believe that is everyone we have today, correct? Great. Okay, next on the agenda, network updates. Vitalik, you want to start us off? Or I meant research updates.
Did you say network updates?
I meant, yeah, out of sorts this morning.
Research updates, let's see. So that's mostly phase 1 and phase 2 stuff. I mean, figured out some improvements to data availability routes that makes the construction slightly cleaner. I mean, we spent a bunch of time looking through alternatives to the 2D data availability construction, and it seems like the consensus view is that there's a bunch of cool ideas, but they're not kind of immediate term enough to be kind of useful for Eth2 at least immediately. So we'd want to start with two-dimensional erasure coding, and then move on to something else later. Let's see. I'm trying to think through recent things. I mean, on the phase 2 front, I mean, there were also some ideas around how to do execution environments. And probably the most recent kind of actually new thing that at least I published was this proposal for switching from ETH1 to ETH2, or moving ETH1 over inside of ETH2 on an earlier schedule than before. So this was the idea that we would basically figure out the stateless client verifier and then kind of actually just include that into the ETH2 system and then come up with this mechanism where ETH1 validators can voluntarily declare themselves as being ETH2 friendly. And if they are ETH2 friendly, then it's only from that pool that you would select proposers, and proposers would have to have the ETH1 state. But then the committee members that validate would still be taken from the global set and they would still validate statelessly. So actually that's something that probably could be interesting to discuss at some point. Like in terms of the prerequisites, I wrote that I wrote up that post on protocol changes for stateless clients, but the main prerequisite pretty much is getting stateless clients working correctly. And so and that's something that I know that people are working on.
Right. I guess importantly, the proposal suggests that the ETH1 friendly validators actually hold the state, and so it kind of removes the one of the elements of complexity that might come with statelessness, which is having as secondary state providers and things for block producers. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Cool. So I think exploring that over the next few months, maybe in parallel to some of the finality gadget stuff, to be able to evaluate the different paths forward is a good idea.
Another thing that's I talked about this to white block people, but the other thing that we need to kind of do our homework on is just verifying that the network actually can handle blocks of somewhat larger sizes. So the numbers that I figured out for witnesses are that we can realistically bound stateless client witnesses to a worst case of about 4 megabytes and an average case of about 600 kilobytes. And it just so happens that 625 kilobytes is the maximum size of a block that's possible on the ETH1 chain post-Istanbul. So one thing I suggested is just repeating the tests that Starkware did before, where I think it was 200 kilobyte blocks, but this time doing 600 kilobyte blocks instead. And the other thing that could be done is just like network tests using ETH2's tooling with and trying to just verify that megabyte size hunks of data can get passed around.
Yeah. Was the main success criteria on that, just the lack of increase in uncle rate?
Pretty much.
Is there anything else you think that you'd want to be looking for on that type of test?
So the white block people said that they could look at like network latency times more directly, but and I feel like uncle rate is like the biggest direct sign of kind of trouble happening, because everything else can, like the only other negative thing that would happen is just clients like regular nodes syncing those blocks more slowly, but that's something that we could kind of measure in fairly easy ways as well.
Okay, cool. Other research updates?
One exciting update for me is that so Supranational, which is the team that is working on the VDF ASIC, kind of independently, kind of as a side project, started thinking about accelerating BLS 12381, and they're actually working with a collaborator who is working on kind of an implementation from scratch of BLS 381 for CPUs. And he's already implemented point addition and point doubling, and he's actually faster than Hirumi. So he's about 10% faster for these two operations. And he's going to start implementing Miller loops and pairings. In addition to the performance improvements, which I guess are nice, this guy is also a formal verification kind of expert. And he had a look at the Hirumi code, and his impression is that formally verifying the Hirumi stuff will be difficult. And part of the reason is that Hirumi has this custom compiler, and it's a bit, the whole code base is quite complex and all over the place. So I mean, he's taking a different approach, which is very minimalist and very clean and very focused on performance, and also focused on formal verification. So I mean, even though it won't be production ready for the launch of phase 0, that's, I guess, something that might be worth investing in for phase 1 or phase 2. And I mean, other than that, there's the I'm still working on thinking about acceleration of snarks, especially the multi-exponentiations. So I've taken a look at Pippinger, and I've also started kind of a technical viability study for building a multi-exponentiation ASIC. And it looks like basically we can get roughly a factor of 1000x improvement in performance. So like we could imagine like a small, like a PCIe card or a small box that you connect to your computer, and it would do about 1 billion exponentiations in like 2 seconds or something like that. I mean, still early days, but I'm quite excited. The other thing that I've been working on is VDF Day. So there will be a VDF Day 1 day prior to SBC, the Stanford Blockchain Conference. So that will be on the 18th of February.
Great, thanks.
Cool. I'll go ahead and do
Yeah,
the
please.
quote. Yeah, awesome. So we have a few things. There is a phase 2 call on the 14th, Tuesday. So that is coming, and we'll be brainstorming and talking about a few different things. A lot of things are continuing from updates from last time. So we have a ganache like tool that can run EEs on multiple shards. So we have that running for multiple shards in parallel right now. And so it's early on. We'll release this next week a full roadmap scope doc and a README around it as well. We're also now focused with TXRX. We're collaborating to build an end-to-end testing suite. And so kind of the move here is that it's library based. So you would pick your proof backend or memory backend, and it kind of connects all these pieces, and then you can develop the EE to run on top of that. So a roadmap doc is coming soon on that as well. There's overlap with some of the ETH1X stateless work. So we're going to release a write-up today that has been in the works that basically nails down the scope for 3 different directions on the state provider side that we can go on, and gives rationales for each of them. We're recommending one particular direction called the pull model, hoping this will be a good topic of discussion for the call on Tuesday. And we're starting a prototype on that as well. And we'll be trying to bring over and work on some of ETH1 data to validate this end to end as well. So looking to get feedback on that, and hoping people will go through that before the call. Continuing to look at some of the cross-shard schemes and things around that. Vitalik did an interesting write-up on a netting format recently, which seems really interesting and seems to remove some of the need for nonces and bit fields. So I've been playing around with some, I guess, some ideas on that. And then we have some other write-ups coming. And one of those is on EE upgradability. Another one is on the fee market discussion for phase 1 and laying out the different options. I think there's 3 that have been stated so far, and one includes kind of a minimalistic phase 2. So there's some interesting discussion around that, and wanted to get some answers around that as well. And then also some interim or iteration plans for phase 2 as well. Thinking of, can we start off with a really restricted, simple phase 2, battle test that, and then build on top of that. So those are our updates.
Great, thanks. So expecting a few ETH research posts.
Yep.
For TXRX, we've been working with the Quilt team quite a bit. We are collaborating on a cross-shard transaction simulator, and that should be out sometime next week. Additionally, we're working on an MLEE that Johnny Ray has been working on called Anomaly. He's making progress there. I think we have something that works pretty well. This is kind of just a side note, ETH Search, if you haven't seen it yet, it's pretty cool. Johnny Ray made that over Christmas, and it indexes, ETH research, pertinent people on Twitter, and what's new in ETH2. So if you're looking for a search topic, or you're looking for a research topic in ETH2, you can search on there, and it's all indexed. That's it.
Cool. What did you mean by an MLEE?
Machine learning.
Right. I guess what are
neural networks on the blockchain?
It's a trained neural network. So what is Johnny? I'm not an ML expert. Johnny is inference, and it's an inference that's compiled as a EE.
Interesting.
It seems a bit similar to what Scale.io did 6 months ago, I think, on ETH1.
Nah, I don't know. Johnny, are you on the call so you can talk to us?
I don't think he is. I'll ask him soon. Thanks, Joseph. Leo.
Thanks.
Yeah, just to mention that we're starting to gather the list of speakers for ETH Barcelona. So if some of you people in your teams want to present, feel free to contact me either on Twitter or Telegram, or you can send me an email to ethbarcelona@gmail.com. Thanks.
Great, and I just shared the link to that. Thanks.
Thanks.
Anyone else? Okay. Next up is networking. There was the last call we discussed allowing for empty responses and streamed network responses, specifically in the block RPC request. That has made it into the spec in P010. Thanks, Yasik. We will do another networking call either 1 week or 2 weeks from now. I'll make a decision today. I'll let y'all know. Any other networking items you want to discuss on this call today? Great. spec discussion. I know we covered a few items in the general updates earlier, but any other items, questions, things you want to discuss today?
How do people feel about the idea of an accelerated ETH1 to ETH2 switch?
Yes.
I like it.
Are you about the latest proposal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like it from technical point of view, but I'm not sure that it will be accepted by the community. I mean, this is the change the consensus and security assumptions. It depends on the point of time at where we are going to do this switch.
Yeah,
I agree.
I think it definitely depends on a successful and stable phase 0 and phase 1 release, kind of demonstrating the security and stability.
My impression is that the sooner that we can bring better functionality to ETH2, the better.
Yeah, agreed. Vitalik, do you see this in lieu of a finality gadget integration or a step past it?
How expensive would a finality get? That's a good question. I don't know. Like, I think a finality gadget as a voluntary thing, like, I think could be done pretty earlier than a full switch. But like enshrined finality gadget in the fork choice rule, like if we're willing to do that, then why would we not be willing to just fully merge the two together?
Yeah, that's kind of where I see it. Is generally most paths, I think it's either kind of one or the other, and this is an alternative to doing a like full integration of finality gadget and bridge. It's kind of like is an alternative to the bridge, I suppose.
Right. I mean, it's like the kind of bridge where you like open up the bridge and then you move all your soldiers to the other side and then you close the bridge behind you immediately.
Right.
It's the best kind of bridge. Right. Okay. No, and like I get from the community, I kind of get a kind of vibe of approval of that proposal, but and that could also be a particular subset.
Yeah, I think there's decent legwork to do on the 1x in terms of proving the
Preparing.
Yeah, proving and preparing the initial 1x the stateless stuff.
Yes, I think 1x stateless is going to be a huge priority this year.
Does anyone not support this? In the obviously there's a lot to learn and figure out before this would actually be something we do. But does anybody have a gut reaction in the negative? Great. It's also a much cleaner way for ETH1 to utilize the scalable data layer of phase 1, more direct way rather than like doing a bridge and exposing state roots, which is nice.
Okay, great. No dissent. It is officially decided once and forever.
That's gonna make it into a CoinDesk article. Great. Okay, cool. Any other spec discussion, general items? We have a phase 1 call coming up. We're gonna have a networking call coming up. We have some relaunches of mainnet spec testnets on the 09X release, and we have a Eth2.0 release coming out. We also have a number of audits. We have some economic analysis going on. The deposit contract write-up on the formal verification is being done right now. Yes, there was an article by the Ethereum Foundation on the Ethereum Foundation blog that some members of the Ethereum Foundation are taking a new direction with the Viper compiler due to issues with the Python Viper compiler. In the write-up, we will address these concerns and address the methods used that are supposed in the formal verification of the deposit contract that are supposed to remove the compiler from the picture. But that will be up for public review and comment very soon. One of the reasons that has been delayed is because the process has gone through deeper levels of analysis and scrutiny than would have done otherwise because of the state of the Viper compiler. I'm saying that for y'all and for the internet. I know there were some comments about that this morning on Reddit and other places. Cool. Anything else? Okay. If you're going to ETH Denver and you haven't already let me know. We might plan some co-working or something like that on some of the days before. Cool. See some of y'all there. I know a bunch of people will be in Stanford shortly after. And keep up the great work. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.